Hello and welcome to Maths with Jacob. This lesson will focus on decimals part 2. Decimals, like fractions, are parts of whole numbers. The reason they are called decimals is that they are expressed using a decimal point. Now we saw this in the last video, so this is just a continuation of the last video, just to help to consolidate your understanding. So let's look at the first example. 7 over 10 equals 0.7. 8 over 10 is 0.8. 9 over 10 is 0.9. These are three facts that I need you to remember, but if you saw the last video, you'll understand why this is the case. If not, I will explain very shortly how you get these answers. Whole numbers and decimal points. It is important to understand that a whole number has an invisible decimal point to the extreme right of the number. So when you have the number 8, there is actually an invisible decimal point to the right of the number 8. Now you can't see it. We don't actually write it in. When you say 8 apples, we just write 8 apples. You don't actually say the decimal point, or you don't have to write it, but it is there. For example 2, a number like 47, say you have $47, the decimal point is there. It's invisible, but you don't have to write it. So this is a very important fact which needs to be remembered. So as I mentioned in the last video, you have to remember that any time you have a whole number, there is an invisible decimal point to the extreme right of that whole number. More examples of decimals. 1 over 10 is 0.1 and 2 over 10 is 0.2. So they're just facts, and you might understand why this is the case if you saw the last video. If not, here we go. We're going to explain how we actually arrive at these answers. On the previous slide, I mentioned that a whole number has the decimal point to the extreme right. This fact helps us to calculate the above conversions. So for the previous example, that's this one here. Let's do it again, but let's put in the invisible decimal point. That's the decimal point there. We didn't actually see it up here because it's invisible, but I've actually put it in. Here is the rule. When dividing by 10, move the decimal point one place to the left. So there's the invisible decimal point. If you move it one place to the left, from there to there, you get the 2 over 10 is 0.2. So that's how you do the conversions when you divide by 10. If you have 49 over 10, the invisible decimal point is here. So we went from here and we moved it one place to the left, and that's why you have 4.9 as the answer. So the decimal point was moved one place to the left. Example 5, we're going to look at what happens when you divide by 100. When dividing by 100, move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So here is the invisible decimal point there, and we're dividing by 100. You move it from there and you move it 2 places to the left, and that's why you get 0.13. For 59 over 100, the invisible decimal point is there, so you move it from there to there, 2 places to the left, and that's why you get 0.59. Example 7, let's see what happens when you divide by 1,000. 148 divided by 1,000, there's the invisible decimal point. Because we're dividing by 1,000, we move it 3 places to the left to here. So the answer is 0.148. Example 8, 769 divided by 1,000. There's the invisible decimal point. You move it from there 3 places to the left, and that's why the answer is 0.769. Now this little rule here helps us to understand how to do these 3 examples. So that little rule there applies to that example, and this one, and this one. And it says, when the decimal point is visible, follow the same rules as above. So example 9, you have 2.4 divided by 10. See how the decimal point is visible? Of course, that's not a whole number, so the decimal point is visible. Well, you're dividing by 10, so just move it one place to the left. So we've gone from there to there, and that's why we have 0.24. 26.4 divided by 100, there's the visible decimal point. We're dividing by 100. Since we're dividing by 100, we move it two places to the left, from there to there. And that's why the answer is 0.264. And for 873.2 divided by 1,000, we move the decimal point from here three places to the left because we're dividing by 1,000, and that's why the answer is 0.8732. So just remember those little rules there, those simple rules, and you should have no problems with those examples.